Good evening. Track workers believe badly loaded wagons could have caused the Caversham derailment that's closed the main South Railway line for the day. 6 wagons on a northbound goods train left the tracks at 4 this morning. Passengers on the Southerner were bussed between Palmerston and Mosgiel, and a freight train was cancelled. Kathy Graham reports.
At 4 o'clock this morning, the train driver felt the automatic brakes go on. When he got out to investigate, he found 6 wagons carrying scrap iron upside down beside the tracks. Only the last wagon was left upright.
These wagons behind us, they were loaded with scrap. My opinion is that they were incorrectly loaded, which caused it. We have different sections in the railways, and they say, you know, it could be track related, which we don't believe anyhow, so into fighting until we find out the actual cause of it.
It's not an obvious cause as in some of the derailments, but it will take some time to get through what is perhaps happening with the wagons, etc., that have come off.
Work gangs were immediately called out. They've been working here since 5 this morning, trying to get the line reopened. New Zealand Rail says its biggest problem has been to get enough men. Everyone available's been on the job for the past 12 hours or more.
The men that are here have done an extremely good job under the conditions. It's been very cold and they've worked very well.
The biggest job's been to lift the line and replace the sleepers. With tons of goods waiting to be moved, it's been a race against the clock. But New Zealand Rail are hoping to have the line open about now.
The Air Accident Inspector's report has just been released on last year's fatal helicopter crash in the Skipper's Canyon. 4 tourists and the pilot died in the crash, caused, says the report, by the machine hitting a wire rope 10 metres above the river. Michael Lynch reports.
This wire rope, installed only 3 years before as a farmer's flying fox, was the cause of last year's crash. The jet Ranger similar to this one hit it at about 80 knots, says the report. The pilot apparently didn't see it. But the report does say the chopper was flying too low in a dangerous and winding gorge. The pilot, 36-year-old Jamie McKenzie, was fairly new to the area, but he'd been told of the wire hazards. There's some suggestion he thought he was in a different part of the gorge. Passengers' videos were recovered from the burned-out wreck, and they showed no evasive action before the chopper hit the wire. The rotor and tail booms sheared off on impact, and the rest of the machine hit the ground 80 metres later and burned up after the impact.
An air search was mounted off the Otago coast this morning after a flare was sighted last night, indicating a vessel in distress. Kathy Graham reports.
A local plane flew over the coast off Dunedin at first light, searching for any sign of the flare's source. An Air Force friendship from Wigram joined the search later in the morning after a second sighting of what was believed to be a flare out to sea from Harbour Cone. The search was called off after neither plane found anything and no boats were reported missing. A ship heading along the coast confirmed it was in the same area at the time the first flare was sighted. The second sighting has now been described as more of a whitish light.
A man who's done a great deal to change the face of Dunedin is leaving the city soon without many people having got to know him. Merv Montacute has been the city's chief executive officer through some difficult years of local government upheaval. Kim Haring reports.
How are you?
Getting Dunedin onto the Home Show may be the achievement most Dunedin people will remember about Merv Montacute.
The new Dunedin City's Chief Executive, Mr Merv Montacute. A very good evening to you and congratulations on what you've done today.
Thank you very much. We've enjoyed having you.
It's been lovely being here. Mr Montacute, you are taking it very seriously, the claim that you're now the largest city in New Zealand. Now, how do you really justify that?
Very easily, Paul. It's quite clear from the Local Government Commission's decisions that Dunedin City, the new Dunedin City, is the largest in the country and land area.
The other thing people will remember was the stir that arose over how much he should be paid. During your time there was quite a controversy over your salary. In fact, many people may know you only because of that.
Exactly, yes.
Did that hurt you personally?
No, I think having been in local government a good few years, I'd got a reasonably tough skin about that. In actual fact, I think in the long run it's worked to my advantage. And it has become a bit of a joke. When I go and give talks and so on, I can say, well, look, you may not have met me, but you certainly know how much I earn.
His staff laughed about it too. They gave him this button and this one to show how they really feel about him.
I think he's incredibly respected by everybody, from the union officials and the staff at a very junior level, right through to the people who work with him, the management team, on a day-to-day basis.
How do you think he's gained that respect?
I think he's proved that he's incredibly capable, and by example, and by the quality of the sort of innovations he's brought to Dunedin.
Inside the City Council, his achievements are pretty well known, but outside he's little known.
Even after 4 years, no one seems to be able to get his name right. The letters still come in for Montacute, and Monty. So I think he finds that the most frustrating thing about his time in Dunedin.
He's managed the transformation of a bureaucratic local authority into a business-like concern, and smoothed the amalgamation of several boroughs into the larger Dunedin City Council. He's the first to say this wasn't all his work, and that in the tornado of changes he's presided over in the past 4 years, residents may have been left a little confused.
We really have been through a revolution in the last 3 or 4 years. And it's been difficult for the staff to deal with it. It's been difficult for managers. It's been difficult for the elected members. And I sympathise with the ratepayers. I mean, I can understand they're still confused as to what the role of the regional council is, what the role of the new Dunedin City is. I think gradually it will start to become clearer.
An international hotel for Moray Place was Merv Montacute's pet project. Although it hasn't happened yet, he hopes foreign investment may get it underway, perhaps next year.
That is absolutely fundamental to Dunedin's future, I believe. And I think it's a good example of the DCC showing a leadership role and being the catalyst to make these things happen. I'm disappointed it hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure it will do.
If the hotel does ever go ahead, a half-hour's free time on national television may not be the only thing Merv Montacute's remembered for.
Dunedin's Chief Executive, Merv Montacute, who's off to America to pursue his own business interests. The cream of the country's young basketball talent is in Dunedin this week for the National Men's Under-20 tournament at the Dunedin Stadium. Ken Nicholson reports that, as with most sports these days, it's the North Island teams that are expected to contest the finals.
Teams such as Palmerston North here in the white, Auckland and North Shore have already looked a notch above the local talent with greater height and skills. Several players, such as Ken Murray in the Palmerston North lineup, are already in the National Rhineck League, and they showed the skills of youngsters who could well go on to represent their country. Palmerston North beat Southland this afternoon, 126-71. Yesterday, Southland had its only win against Otago B, with guard Brent Morton controlling the midcourt and often finding the basket. But even though many of the Otago and Southland players are very good prospects, the overall standard is even higher.
The standard is very, very high. We don't appear, or it doesn't appear at this stage, as if there's the numbers of taller kids that we've had over the last 3 or 4 years. But the standard of the top teams is right up there, there's no doubt about that.
Otago had 2 losses yesterday after making a promising start against Waikato, Shane Taylor hitting his first attempt from outside the 3-point line. There were good skills shown right through the court, but no matter how well the local lads play, it's hard to see them upsetting the Northerners.
But they'll definitely have a good go. That's it from us. We'll be back tomorrow. Good night.